All right, in this session, we have content experts at 3 different colleges, which is wonderful to have more of our system represented. The first individual is Eric Betancourt from Norco College. He has a dual hat on over there, but primarily is the school certifying official. Arlene Serrato at Moreno Valley College in evaluations, done a ton of work with military CPL, and Tina Barlalong, who is the veterans counselor, as well as counseling active duty personnel at Palomar, who has a big footprint down at Camp Pendleton. So they have a lot of Marines and a lot of military affiliated students. My role in this session is really just to facilitate the chat box and nudge and encourage the conversation along. So please engage, ask your questions or make comments in the chat box. And I'm going to hand it over to the panelists. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Eric Betancourt. I wear 2 hats like Terrence said. I am the V certified official for Norco College, Riverside Community College District, and I'm also an adjunct part-time veterans educational counselor for our institution. So some of the objectives we're going to have today on MilCPL 201, it's going to be some of our board policies changes at our district, how the district went about selecting CT programs when incorporating CPL and MAP, and also the veterans intake process and JST uploads for our institution, GI Bill benefits, MilPIC, CPL's considerations, and some tips for counselors who are out there assisting veterans. Next slide, please.
So one of the key points that we wanted to hit upon is the changes that came with this implementation of all of this. One of the things that we did for sure was RCC's previous board policy only allowed our veterans 15 units maximum. Our students would come in with their JSTs full of units, and we would only give them 2 units in self-development for their GE requirement, as well as 13 possible units in elective credit. We were able to change that throughout the district. So we are a 3-college district. It is Moreno Valley, Riverside, and Norco College within RCCD. Within the district, we were able to change this, and now our students are able to get health education, which is our Health Science 1, and self-development, as well as an additional 25 units depending on where those units are needed. So if the student happens to have a exact equate, they would get that exact equate, or they can get elective units. And one of the things I do want to mention, I will put it in the chat. I will put a Padlet so we can all interact with one another. I'd like to know, like, what's the maximum units that your college is taking right now? There's also questions on there like, who are you? Who processes and evaluates your JSTs at the college. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and put it on there so we're able to embed it and maybe go in there and answer some questions at the end. And this is just, again, reiterating the part of our policy change. And this was one of the biggest changes that we were able to make sure our students were getting our veteran students were getting more units allotted to them. The health education was our area E1 in our RCC local requirements, and self-development is area E2. And now with most of their JSTs, we are allowed to give those students health education and self-development. And one of the things I found at Moreno Valley College is I had about 4 or 5 students sitting in my queue, not able to graduate without that health science. And we were able to, with the board policy changing, we were able to graduate them and they were able to complete their degree requirements.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give you some information about the project that we did at Norco College. So because of the board policy changes and the CPL and MAP implementation that we had our institution, we wanted to outreach to our current population. So what we did is we put together a project. We called it Operation Night Owls, but our main objective was to outreach to the veterans in our current cohort. We wanted to inform them about our current CPL and MAP project, award those veterans, eligible veterans, the units they deserve. And we're also targeting certain certain departments, certain classes. And just to give you a heads up, when we did this project, we did not have the memo from the CSU in regards to awarding general education major prep requirements. So we were only concentrating in certificates and associate's degrees at our institution. But now with that memo, things have changed. So we're probably going to use this same project we did and target those students who are actually transferring. Also, when we did this operation Night Owls, we also targeted those who were close to getting 60 units or close to having 60 units and being awarded a degree. Why do we do that? Because we're like, wait a minute, somebody's 10, 15 units away from getting their associate's degree. Why not award them through this military CPL MAP project and award them the degrees they deserve? That way they can go ahead and save their GI Bill for when they transfer or for another program, whatever they decide to do. Next slide, please. So what do we do? All right, so we basically outreach to our current general population. How do we do this? Wouldn't be possible with our IT team. They're the ones that provided us contact information. So once IT provided us with this information, we made various phone calls to both their student and both phone calls to their cell phone and home phone if they had one. We emailed them CPL MAP info to both personal and student email address. We also offered Zoom workshops on a weekly basis for those who were interested in getting more information about our CPL-MAP platform we have at our institution. So during certain days and during certain times, veterans who wanted information on the CPL-MAP project were able to just go on a Zoom session and speak to a live person. We also had educational counselors available during certain days and during certain times. And not only would we have Zoom workshop sessions, counselors available, but we also had weekly orientations. So on a weekly basis, students can go ahead and log in once again to Zoom and attend one of our military CPL MAP orientations. Project outcome. So what was our project outcome? We contacted over 300 students. Out of the 300 students, 26 of the students opted in. We would have had more students that opted in, but in reality, this is one of the issues we had. A lot of students didn't either get back to us on the emails or did not answer the phone calls. But I am positive that if we had the manpower or the power just in general to be able to outreach to this veterans, that our numbers would have been a lot higher than 26 students who opted in. Out of the 26 students that opted in, though, the great news is that we were able to award 471 units were awarded for both equivalent courses and elected courses. So what I mean by equivalent courses is course EQ for associate's degrees and certificate at our institution only. Like I said earlier, the memo from the CSU wasn't out prior to doing this, but we at our institution, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and implement this project again for those who are interested in transferring. What are our next steps? So what we learned from this project was, one, that it works. Two, that we were able to save a lot of veterans, a lot of their GI Bill, and time and money, for them to be able to use that at a later time. Another thing we learned is that this CPL is basically a full-time job within its own. We need dedicated staff to do this. Norco College was, they were able to pay us overtime to do this, but in reality, I'm sure you guys, those of you who are working CPL at your institutions, know that this is a big project. So one thing that I learned, like I said, this is a full-time position, just doing this on its own. Next, Ernie. This is one of our first MAP recipients, Daryl Palmer. I was really happy for Mr. Daryl Palmer. Daryl Palmer was one of our students. He's been around for many years. He's a full-time. He's employed full-time, married, kids. He only takes 1-2 classes per term. Mr. Daryl Palmer was at my office numerous times, talking to me about his MOS and how he feels that he deserves course EQs for electronics. He feels that he could teach electronics courses. So it was roughly around 2-3 years that Daryl would come to my office, not exaggerating, it was years. And I would always tell him, yeah, Daryl, I agree with you, but unfortunately policy says this. But after, getting this project going on and having the map software implemented at Norco College and the CPL, we were able to award Mr. Daryl Palmer 17 units of course by course EQ that were used towards his electronics degrees. So, like I said, course by course EQ, that's huge. 17 units of course by course EQs. That was a big deal. That's not including what we awarded him for Area E, self-development, which is 5 units there. So in reality, he got 20-some units by CPL map project that we had at Norco College. Thank you. Next.
So at Moreno Valley, we had a small but mighty team. We had a very dedicated dean who just retired. She was former Navy, and she was very involved in this, and she really wanted to make sure that her veteran students were getting credit. And she was able to, we were able to work together, and I was able to I'm not a veteran. At my previous, I've been an evaluator for about 6 years. When we looked at JSTs, we looked at it as, okay, did they do boot camp? Yay, they got 2 units for self-development. Did they do military experience? It was actually military courses at that time that we were looking at, and were they lower division, and we gave them 13 units. That's all we did with JSTs. So I was able to sit down with her, and she was able to help me understand, okay, but this student did this with management. This student did this with leadership. We were able to give a better lens to a lot of our faculty, and that's exactly where we were moving towards. Because of COVID, we had to slow down a little bit. I did lose an evaluator, so it was a smaller but mighty team. At Moreno Valley College, we started off with evaluating. So at the beginning of this project, we were given a list of students. I'm sorry, let me go back. There was a list of veterans around our area, and I was able to pull their occupations and see exactly what those occupations entailed and if they related to our curriculum. Within those occupations, I was able to see there was 115 occupations. There was 10 disciplines that we were able to look at. We were able to capture 9 of our faculty members. We use our department chairs to evaluate and move forward the recommendation. We were able to look at those 60 military courses that were different from all of them within the 115 occupations were equated to 13 of our MVC courses. And then I'll show a little bit more. And then we were also, at the same time, we were also looking at our current students. So these were students that were sitting at our college that had the regular process done, not the newer one done. And we looked in and we observed how many of those students were able to get additional units. And then we were able to we saw an additional, I believe, 2 disciplines with that. And then we were able to see another 2 MVC courses. So we were capturing the same disciplines, and we were also capturing the same courses at the same time. So looking at the occupations that were around us. So remember, those belong to the veteran students that were around us, not currently attending Moreno Valley College. But one of the things that we did observe with the current students is that some of the students that were doing their majors at the college were not very close to their military occupations. So we didn't want to fill up their transcript with credit that they weren't going to be able to use, and we didn't want to mess up their GI Bill. And then I want to show you guys, this is the current curriculum in our CTE programs at Moreno Valley College. We do have, at our college, we do have dental hygiene, we have dental assistant, we have fire tech, we have law enforcement. These were the ones I was looking at specifically. Once you actually get into like the meat and bones of this, our dental hygiene right now currently would not take any military credit. So we're not working with them, but we were able to see like our accounting, our ADJ, our business, our CIS, our FIT, our MDA. These disciplines we're accepting and we're evaluating our credit for us. And the reason why I say that about dental hygiene, our dental hygiene program is very state board. And that's one of the biggest things that we don't know if they've followed state board. So we will be doing more research on that.
Arlene,
Yes.
if I can chime in right there, I think that's a really important part, because I talk a lot about institutions and individuals being scared about transfer ability. There's also state licensing and boards. So your discipline experts in your academic disciplines should know that. They should know the overlay of, will it impact my licensure in the end? That's not for evaluations or for the veterans counselor. That's not for, the SCO. That's really for that discipline expert to understand what impacts that will have with licensure. So don't be afraid of having the conversation, but also don't be disheartened when they say, well, I could give them credit, but then they won't get licensed. That's a significant issue, Arlene. But have the conversations. The one thing I would ask, Arlene and Eric, if you guys can toss up in the chat your test link when you finish with your slides, showing them what are the fruits of your labor. I think that's an important thing to share with the group.
And going back to the state certification, at Moreno Valley College, we have Ben Clark, which has all of our fire technology, all of our firefighters. A lot of them are coming from CAL FIRE, and previously we didn't take CAL FIRE. And now we are talking with faculty, and faculty is looking into it. They actually, I was just telling the story, previously 2-3 years ago, they would send me, we had course substitutions, and they would send me their certifications for CAL FIRE, and we wouldn't take it because it wasn't part of our board policy. And so we had to send them back saying, although it was approved by the department chair, this isn't our policy that we take. And now we're going back and like, okay, let's see if we can now take it. So we are working with our fire technology discipline, because we do have a very high population of firefighters at Moreno Valley College. And then I just wanted to show you, like, for someone who has who's never really gone deep into the JSTs, these are the titles that we were looking at. These were the titles that were at Moreno Valley College, the military occupations that we had around us. Like I said, we were able to look at 115. We looked at mostly current occupations. We were looking at exactly what these occupations were bringing. And we also made a direct connection to Moreno Valley RCCD curriculum. So you'll see on here, it does say Management 51 and CIS 3. These are our courses, but it was a management course. It was a computer class. And then we were able to, like I said, the health science was one of the biggest ones. So this student that was doing aviation with this title here was able to get 11 units. And then this was after our first pilot. We were, and again, these are all Moreno Valley RCCD titles, ADJ 12, but I did name the course name on here. And this was, so for every ADJ 12, there was one course in the military that we could have given them equated. That was for those. So remember, I looked at 115 occupations and I looked at our 35 students. That's what was able to be equated. I'm sure there's, Dr. Lee mentioned there was 4,000 different jobs, and there's so many that we can go in there and evaluate, but this is what we were looking at. I did put the course name on here so that to see if they can translate over to whichever curriculum you're looking at. Our management was one of the bigger ones. CIS, we had a lot of CIS courses. Recently, we're trying to move it over to be a CIS course that does meet a general education. We are working on that one. Another thing about evaluating incoming JSTs, like I said, it was a learning process for all of us. We're looking now at ranks. That was something that we didn't look at before. At the top of the JST, there is a rank for each individual, and the ranks go with what the credit was evaluated for. So a rank that was higher would possibly get more course evaluations. One of the biggest things we had was the course descriptions. Our faculty were looking at what ACE was given, their recommendations, and some of the recommendations were about a sentence or two. My faculty was looking at that and was like, I can't give them 3 units, although ACE recommended 3 units. So currently ACE is getting a lot more in detail, and it is looking more like a course description that you would see now in tests. And right now we're building our evaluations into MAP. I am working on, our faculty is getting trained to go in there and do it, go in there and evaluate courses. I would do the first step. So that would be me in the first one, the block, and then the faculty that goes in and they see, okay, is that really what it is? Does that student really deserves 3 management or is it not? And then our articulation officer goes in there and approves it and moves it forward. And then here is what Terrence was talking about. We are implementing tests. We are trying to put all of our publishing, all of our courses that have been gone through the full process. And just keep in mind that we do come from a 3-college district. So this part of it was very hard sometimes because it wasn't just Moreno Valley College saying yes. It had to be that either Norco or Riverside said yes. So if you do come from a district, talk to us. The single ones, I'm jealous for you guys because it's probably easier, a little bit easier to get your faculty rather than getting 3 different colleges to approve it. And currently we do have a pilot going on. We have over 50 students and we are looking at every single thing that they've brought in. And we are looking at about 140 units that have value to them. They have not been posted to their transcripts. We are working on that part. We are working on, and we'll talk about this in the intake process. And then Palomar.
That's some really great information, Arlene. This is everything that's been mentioned up until this point is pretty much where Palomar needs to, or is continuing to develop. We're on the cusp of that now in terms of looking at the JSTs and awarding additional military credit. But what we do have right now is we do have a military leadership program that's offered through for the sergeant schools. So if folks have gone through sergeant school, particularly Camp Pendleton and 29 Palms, we do have a program that allows students to receive 18 units of free college credit and also a certificate of achievement. So that's great. Next slide, please. This is a picture here of our first cohort. It's small because it was COVID, obviously, but this is just an outline of what that military leadership apprenticeship program looks like. In addition, in that red box, I know it's real small, but that's the 18 credits that they do receive from sergeant school, and then they take what's like work experience courses, and they're gaining additional credits to receive the 18 units for the associate's degree, and they could potentially move on to achieve if they finished up the general education requirements for the CSU or the IGETC, that does put us into a position where students are able to articulate to either Arizona State University or National University. So our articulation officer worked really, really hard to develop this program where they don't have to take any other prep for major. They're taking the military credits and sets them up real nice for a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership. But in addition to that, they also have certificates coming from the Department of Labor and the California apprenticeship program. So that's what we're also doing. Next slide, please. This is an example of, I know that Eric was talking about earlier in terms of the Marine Corps, the Communication Electronics School. This is an example of what we found with an MOS that pretty much grants credit for 99% of the program requirements for this particular degree. This is a networking program with the emphasis in Cisco, and then pretty much everything is covered except for there's 2 CS networking courses, and then the things that are outlined in green are general education requirements. And so we already do the PE and health local requirements are waived in addition to area CSU. So essentially, if they just finished up their general education local requirements and those 2 networking courses, that's an associate's degree at Palomar College in this particular program. Next slide, please. And so just a little bit about just opening this up. Palomar College is a school that has been working on creating and developing programs or processes for credit for prior learning, not just military credit, but we're looking at some military training, industry training, the state and federal government training, looking at apprenticeships, internships, and work-based learning, or other industry-based experiential learning, and also other validated volunteer and civic activities such as the Peace Corps. And just kind of a background in terms of like how we did this. It was, you know, how do we attack this, right? We worked with our faculty. We do have a coordinator currently. Her name is Candace Rose. She's absolutely phenomenal, and she has been instrumental in in rallying up the troops, so to speak, in terms of faculty and identifying which programs are going to be working, like what works. And so a lot of the hints that kind of come through are when faculty members our instructional faculty have conversations with students, and they have these conversations about experiences and those industry training and the certifications that they already have. We developed a template for a crosswalk to develop, okay, which courses would work, like on the faculty side. So it's very much so faculty driven, and also creating the rubrics in terms of what would qualify, comparing that to student learning outcomes and what that looks like. So it could be a portfolio, it could be a conversation, it could be uploading your industry certifications, and really creating what that looks like. And so this inventory, this crosswalk or inventory sheet is pretty much the baseline for our database for the courses that would be CPL eligible. Next slide, please. And so on Palomar College's website, and I'll be sure to drop the links in the chat as well. Palomar College has a CPL webpage, and I do recommend the resources that are on there. So many resources for faculty and other components, articulation office, everything is on there in terms of what we've used to create this program at Palomar College. We do have a searchable CPL webpage where you're going to be able to identify courses based on the type of assessment, the discipline, and also majors. So we're going to be implementing this and kind of weaving it into guided pathways as well. Next slide, please. And then just on the back side, I took some screenshots of prior slides just in case you were curious about that. We do have developed a electronic petition form. So it's no longer this hard copy form that students are forced to kind of like run around campus. We wanted to make sure that it was something that tracked, right? So initially it starts with either faculty member or pretty much a counselor. So I'm a counselor where we talk about this, and we talk about what's the appropriate course, right? And whether or not the course is moving towards their degree. We don't just necessarily just award all these credits, because obviously there's going to be some implications of financial aid and things like that. We go through that process. So there's an electronic petition form, and then there's also the section here, the CPL and the curriculum process, in terms of what happens in meta and how those courses are identified as CPL approved. And then there's the last part here in terms of what that credit looks like on the transcript. And so it works out beautifully in terms of just awarding that credit. So I just wanted to show you that on the back end. And then I think last slide for me. And then I just wanted to insert just a QR code there. It drops into our credit for prior learning page, and then just some contact information. Thank you.
So now I'll go ahead and start discussing the veterans intake process and JST uploads at our Norco institution. So I'm sure every college out there has your own veterans intake process customized to your needs of your institution. So I'm just going to kind of give you some tips on what we did at our institution to promote CPL at Norco College. So one of the main recommendations I will have is just apply your CPL to your regular intake process. So I'm sure a lot of colleges have, for example, step 1, apply for VA benefits, step 2, apply for your institution, step 3, complete financial aid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what we did at our institution, we applied a step of CPL and MAP within our intake process for veterans. And one thing to know is that CPL is not mandatory. So per Title V, veterans have the right to say, you know what, yes, evaluate my coursework for CPL, I want to opt in, or no, I don't want my coursework to get evaluated through CPL. So Title V right now allows veterans to choose whether they want to transcript evaluated or not via CPL. So just like I said earlier, just treat CPL and as a transcript, and let the veteran opt in or opt out, because he or she has the ability to say yes or no. Next slide, please. So what we do, and I'm not gonna go into this in detail, but basically during the intake process, veterans are informed of CPL. Veterans is not interested, they will just proceed with our general process. But if the veteran is interested in CPL, one of our staff members will schedule an appointment. That way they can meet with the Veterans Educational Counselor. The Veterans Educational Counselor will go ahead and discuss in detail pros and cons of CPL, specifically how it might impact their financial aid, and also might impact their BAH when using VA benefits. Once the map information is discussed, students agrees, students will fill out a consent form, basically opting in or opting out for VA CPL at Norco College. If they are opt-in, then once their evaluation has been completed, we'll go ahead and send them an email, letting them know that it's been completed, to please contact a counselor. That way we can go over their outcome. Next, please. So this is the veterans student checklist that we use at our institution. And as you could tell here, we just added military CPL to our intake process. We did it close to where next to transcripts. That's where we found that it would best fit. But like I said, at an institution, you have different intake process, so fit it to where it fits your needs. But key is, like I said, they have the ability to opt in or opt out for CPL. Next, please. All right, so this is some of the things that counselors or anybody assisting veterans with CPL should be aware of and should keep in mind. One is financial aid maximum time frame. So financial aid, and I'm not in financial aid, I'm not an expert, so I always refer your students to financial aid, but I do know that financial aid has a maximum time frame. What that means is that once a student hits X amount of units, they're flagged. Hey, John Doe, why do you have 90 units in this many, at our institution? Well, reason being is because we awarded John Doe 30 units of CPL. Okay, so that's one thing to be aware of. But fortunately, there are petitions to that. So if at least our institution, and I'm sure a lot of community colleges in the state of California have the same petition. But if for some reason the student has a big amount of units, there's a petition they can fill out our institution saying, you know what, financial aid, yes, I do have 90 units, but the reason I have so many units is because I was awarded 30 units to my military training. And for the most part, they will approve his or her petition.
Eric,
yes.
Just a heads up, we have 3 minutes left.
Okay, I'll go ahead and speed it up. So basic allowance for housing, make sure that you inform your veterans about how awarding X amount of CPL credits might not allow them to be a full-time student. That does not happen all the time, but it could happen. Like I said, there's always petitions to that. Next, please. And CPL counseling tips. CSU Era E is fulfilled with their military training basic boot camp. And then also students should contact the university to determine if they'll accept military elective units. That's also a big plus. And then also keep in mind that CSU memo that came out 10/17/21 is a big game changer. So this is going to change everything. Thank you very much.
I think I was going to cover this one. In terms of students who have that DLPT, covers CSU GE Breadth Subarea C2, and for the associate's local degree, covers the humanities for us as well. So that this is a screenshot of what that looks like on the JST.
If you want to start your CPL work with your students, here's the contact information from the presenters. You can always reach me as you have my email. And Calvin's going to be engaging with a lot of us here coming up soon. He's new to our team. I do want to stress, if you want the easy button and you jump into the DLPT, CLEP, the languages, that's an easy button to start out. The CSU already accepts it. You can look at area C2 and give a good amount of credit for those that were linguists. Another area that I'd suggest to focus on, Tina touched on this, but I can't strike this home enough. Having a CPL faculty lead on your campus just moves mountains for the state. Palomar's doing great work for overall CPL, but being able to dedicate a portion of a faculty member's contract, if not a full contract, so they can engage their peers. There's a lot of other staff members, non-instructional faculty as well, but getting a disciplined faculty member as your CPL lead is a game changer, and you may only need to fund it for a year or two as you build your culture. So I highly suggest to look at guided pathways, strong workforce, other funding sources to be able to allow for some release time to allow for a faculty lead. We would do questions, but we need to jump back into the general session. So really want to thank the presenters here. These are content experts. They gave some really, really good information. We will have the slide deck available after the training. We plan to post all the videos and the slide decks up within a couple weeks of the training, and we will alert you as to where you can find it and share with your team. So thank you all. Thank you, Eric, Tina, Arlene. You guys are wonderful.